The envelope didn't look like power. It looked like junk mail, off-white, slightly damp, the flap resealed by a board intern with a glue stick that had seen better days. If I hadn't been the last paralegal locking the file room at 9:48 p.m., it would have been filed under later and then never. Instead, I slid my thumb under the seam and tipped my life into my hands. Contracts. Wire trails. A single glossy photo captured at the wrong distance, like the camera itself felt guilty. On the back, a stamp. Cordelia Holdings. I didn't know Cordelia yet. I knew overdue notices and the cold fluorescent hum over my sister's bed at Mercy East. I knew how long it takes for insurance to forget a human has a name. I knew how to smile at partners who mistook gratitude for obedience. None of that prepared me for the figure stepping into my third-floor walk-up like he had bought the air. "Olivia Hale," he said. Not a question. A receipt. Adrian Cross was a study in expensive restraint. Suit matte black and precise, tie loosened by one rebellious inch, eyes that had taught rooms to quiet. If the city had a patron saint of unreturned phone calls, it was him. "You have something of mine?" he added. I put the envelope behind me like I could hide a thunderstorm. "I think you've mistaken me for—" "Don't lie." He walked past the chipped counter, past the lemon peel candle I lit when I couldn't afford grocery lemons, and stopped where the floorboards squeaked in winter. I despise the inefficiency of it. A check landed on the table. Zeros. More zeros. The kind that change spines. "For your silence," he said. "My silence isn't for sale." He tipped his head, amused. "Everything is for sale. Only the price changes." "Then you can't afford mine." I tried on defiance. It fit better than I expected. He didn't bother to smile. "Your sister's name is Emma. Mercy East sent a denial at 3:12 p.m. today. I wired a bridge payment at 7:03. A beat. Breath is expensive. Consider this a discount." My mouth went dry. "How did you—" "I read for a living," he said. "Numbers. People. Hospitals." The floor went soft under me. "What do you want?" "Nothing complicated." His gaze flicked to the photo peeking from the envelope. "Your voice. Kept off the record. Kept out of rooms. Kept out of the wrong ears. And if I say no?" He gave me the courtesy of honesty. "Then your sister goes back to a wait list." I should have thrown the check back hard enough to cut him. Instead, I pictured Emma on day 12 in the neuro ward, making jokes because the right side of her smile had forgotten how. I pictured the nurse placing a hand on my shoulder the way you touch grief so it doesn't bolt. "One condition," I said. "You pay all of it. Not a bridge. Not a month. You carry Emma across." His eyes cooled from winter to ice. "Agreed. You put it in writing." "You'll sign more than that," he replied, sliding a folder forward. "Non-disclosures that smelled like lacquer. And before you ask, yes, my lawyers wrote it to bruise." The pen felt heavier than metal. I signed where the flags told me to sign. The ink didn't blot. The world did. As I handed the folder back, he reached for the envelope. On impulse so reckless I barely recognized myself, I kept my hand on it. "Why me?" I asked. A muscle flicked in his jaw. "Because you were in the wrong room at the right time. And because I look good on your arm?" That earned the smallest curve of mouth, self-loathing disguised as charm. "Optics are a language we both understand, Ms. Hale." "Not my language." "Learn fast," he said, and left me with the check, the contract, and a city that had just rearranged itself into two kinds of people. Those who could call a hospital and bend time, and the rest of us. When the door shut, I pressed my forehead to the cool wood and did the arithmetic of survival. Pride divided by breath equals grief. Tonight, breath won. I texted the only person who mattered. "Meek, good news?" A foundation stepped in. 3 dots. "Emma, does this mean I get to keep my brain?" "Me, yes. And I'm bringing contraband coffee at 8. I set the envelope in the freezer behind a bag of peas. It was ridiculous and insufficient. It also made me feel, for one delirious second, like I could keep a fire from spreading if I made it cold enough. Outside, sirens stitched the night. Inside, I practiced a smile that wouldn't scare my sister. It looked almost real in the mirror. Almost. Cross Global's lobby was designed to make mortals reconsider their gods. I counted 6 kinds of marble and 3 kinds of silence on my way to the elevators. By the time I reached the 57th floor, my reflection had learned how to look like it belonged in glass. His office wasn't an office. It was a view with furniture. The city flowed beyond the windows like money remembering its rivers. Adrian stood at the far edge, back to me, hands in his pockets as if he were holding New York up by the corners. "Sit," he said without turning. The chair molded to me like it had learned my shape overnight. A leather folder waited. Gold-stamped, non-disclosure and ancillary agreements. I flipped the cover. Weaponized grammar glared up. Clauses 4 through 8 are retribution, I said. 9 is obscene. It's insurance, he replied, still watching a skyline that didn't blink. Obscene is optional. You won't test it. You don't know me. I know enough. He finally faced me. You were student loan punctual even when your father's heart failed. You keep the utilities one day from late because it makes you feel like a gambler. You told Mercy East you'd sell your car to make the deposit, but your car has 12 more payments and the engine light is a liar. He crawled my neck. Do you read everyone like a spreadsheet? Only when it matters, he said. You matter. Because you are astonishingly dangerous to me. It shouldn't have felt like power. It did. I initialed a paragraph that promised to ruin me if I breathed the wrong noun in the wrong bar. What is Cordelia? I asked, letting the name sit between us like a naked wire. A container, he said. For reputational waste. Translation? He didn't blink. The money we used when we pretended the world had no costs. Jakarta, I said, lifting the single photo I hadn't moved to the freezer. Men in reflective vests, a container ship too close to shore, an unmarked tanker shouldering night. Is that where the cost started? He didn't answer. Which was an answer. A woman appeared in the doorway like a well-timed comma. Mid-40s, precision jacket, eyes that audited rooms. I'm Lydia Cho, she said. Mr. Cross's counsel. Hi, I said. I'm the liability. Currently, she replied, almost smiling. She tapped the folder. You're signing protection as much as punishment. It's brutal because the world is. But my card is in the back. If he stops paying as promised, you call me and the ceiling falls on him first. Adrian arched a brow. Is that in the engagement letter? It's in my bones, Lydia said. Now, public optics. Mr. Cross will attend the Greystone Gala next week. You will accompany him. I blinked. I'm not a prop. You're a narrative, Lydia said, not unkind. For a cause neurorap. It helps twice, the street thinks clean, and your sister's clinic gets a wing. I won't be bought with a plaque, I snapped. Adrian's gaze sharpened. This isn't a plaque. It's a corridor with light when you visit Emma at 2 a.m. Silence landed, heavy and merciless. Wear what you like, Lydia added, softer. Just not your principles. Those can stay. When she left, I signed the last page. My name looked strange beside his, like the universe had misprinted something. He reached for the folder. Our fingers didn't touch. My pulse didn't get the memo. Eat with me, he said. This is coercion. It's pasta, he said, and the smallest smile cut the ice at the edge of his mouth. I don't function on empty. Then feed yourself, I said and stood. In the elevator, the city rose to meet me. I watched my reflection recede from his office, a small dark figure in expensive glass, and thought, if I don't figure out how to breathe differently, this will drown me anyway. My phone buzzed. Emma, bring the contraband and your bad jokes. Me, all I have is worst jokes. Emma, perfect comedy lowers blood pressure. I smiled into the metal. Then the doors opened to a lobby that smelled like flowers bred to outlive apologies. Greystone was the kind of gala that pretends it's a hospital. Crystal poured from ceilings. Men wore their net worths in wool. Women wore causes on their collarbones. The string quartet had the exhausted joy of people paid well to watch other people be seen. Lydia's team had outfitted me in satin the color of an argument, deep green, almost black under the chandeliers. When Adrian saw me at the base of the stairs, something in his posture tripped. Optics, I said. Survival, he corrected, offering his arm like a dare. Ready? Not even a little. Good, he said. People who are ready don't notice when the floor moves. The evening marched, choreographed down to laughter. Adrian introduced me to directors who pronounced my name like a footnote. He leaned in at strategic moments, a hand at the small of my back, a claim disguised as care. The photographers loved him. They tolerated me. The senator smelled like cedar and compromise. Between toasts, I escaped to the edge of the balcony where the city pretended it was made of stars. A woman took my place at the rail, stunning in silver, eyes like knives that had learned manners. Eva, she said before I asked. Don't worry. I'm not here to make a scene. You've already made one, I said. In his head. She laughed softly. He collects brilliant problems. You might be his favorite. I'm not a problem, I said, then heard the lie in my own mouth. Of course you are, she replied, not unkind. And he's a man who believes problems are just equations he hasn't priced yet. What were you to him? An earlier lesson, she said. Tell him to stop trying to fix grief with scaffolding. I'm not his translator. No, she said, studying me. You're the gravity he can't math away. Before I could decide whether to be flattered or terrified, Adrian appeared with 2 flutes and a face more shuttered than the city after midnight. Eva's smile thinned. Your taste remains impeccable, she told him. In dresses if nothing else. Good night, Eva, he said, pared to bone. She touched my arm as she left. Cool fingers. Warm warning. Hold on if you can stand the wind. I handed Adrian the extra flute. Your ex is poetry with knives. She's a sociopath with a calendar, he said, but the edge in his voice wasn't anger. It was history he hadn't filed yet. During the pledge segment, a board member announced Cross-Global's 7-figure gift to Mercy East NeuroRap. My throat hurt. I should have felt bought. Instead, I felt something like oxygen. Emma's corridor. Emma's 2 a.m. light. When the string quartet slid toward goodnight, we slipped out the side entrance. In the car, I pulled pins from my hair until the ache eased. You hate this, he said. Only the parts that require a mask. Which parts don't? The ones where someone breathes because we paid the bill, I said. Everything else is noise. He looked away like the window had asked a better question. Noise is how I kept from hearing the fire. He hadn't told me the story yet. He had told me the shape of it. That night, under a city that never learned how to sleep, I realized I was going to hear the whole thing whether I could bear it or not. My apartment smelled like lemon and a life I wasn't living anymore. I set the borrowed clutch on the counter, slid the envelope from the freezer, and stared at Cordelia until the letters rearranged into threat. My phone vibrated. Unknown, you don't get to save her with dirty money. Friday. Midtown Fountain. Come alone. I took a photo, sent it to a contact I shouldn't have, the one Lydia had programmed into my phone under Shredder. She replied in 90 seconds. On it. A knock. Not the door, the inside of my chest. I opened to find Adrian in shirt sleeves, tie loose, eyes new. You can't be here, I said even as I stepped back. I know, he said, walking in. And yet. He saw the envelope on the counter and smiled without teeth. Freezer? It's very New York, I said. We keep sins next to peas. He leaned on the counter, closer than he had any right to be. The room warmed or I did. You think I can't survive this, he said softly. I can. I've survived worse. I just don't want to survive it the way I used to. How did you used to? By buying quiet and calling it virtue. And now? He looked at me like the answer might be someplace on my face. Now I want the quiet to be earned. I should have told him to leave. I should have told him we were a contract, not a confession. Instead, I reached into the envelope and slid a copy of the Jakarta ledger onto the counter. If we do this, I said, we do it on my terms. We move slow. We keep Emma out. We bleed your uncle in the court that cares about numbers, not noise. Mayachin, he said, not asking. Among others, I replied, equally not. He nodded once. Then we start in the morning. Why not now? He glanced at the clock. Because you need to sleep. And because if I stay, I won't. Heat climbed my throat. I hated that he could do that to me with 6 words and an exit. When the door shut, I stood in the quiet and admitted 3 things to the dark. I had sold my silence. I was already spending it on a different kind of truth. The man who bought it was the only person who might stand between my sister and a system that eats girls like us for breakfast. In bed, the city buzzed like a restless animal. I pressed my palm to the window, felt the hum, and thought of the fire he hadn't named. In my half-sleep, I saw a woman's hands, Adrian's mother's, reaching for a latch that didn't open. I woke with a gasp and the taste of smoke I'd never breathed. When morning came, it brought a sky washed clean. It also brought a text from Lydia. Put on sneakers. Today we run. I looked at the envelope, at the P's, at my shoes. Then I laced up. We had a dynasty to dismantle, one ledger line at a time. Mercy East didn't used to have sunlight. It had fluorescent fatigue and a vending machine that ate singles. But the new neuro wing had windows that remembered morning. When I rolled Emma down the hall, she blinked like a cat discovering an unguarded sunbeam. Whoa, she breathed. Is this what the rich call Tuesday? Wednesday, I corrected, fighting the sudden weakness in my knees. The plaque near the entrance gleamed. Mercy East Neurorehabilitation, Cross-Global Endowment. A line below in smaller font. Anonymous benefactors. Emma craned her neck. Anonymous, huh? There are still saints who hate cameras, I lied gently. A therapist appeared with a clipboard and a smile that didn't apologize. Miss Hale? We've moved your sessions to a private room, fewer interruptions. She lowered her voice. The billing holds cleared. Everything's green. Green. A color that isn't supposed to make a throat ache. While they worked through a sequence of motions, lift, hold, breath, smile, Adrian stood back in the doorway half-shadowed as if the light would judge him if he stepped into it too quickly. He didn't interrupt. He didn't orchestrate. He watched my sister learn her hand again and looked like a man who'd just signed a treaty with his own pulse. After, I wheeled Emma to the window where the city framed itself like hope that refused to be tasteful. She turned, caught him, and grinned the lopsided grin that had earned her so many free muffins. So you're the anonymous donor, she said as if stating the weather. His mouth tilted. I'm terrible at anonymity. Thanks for the sunlight, she said. I don't like the dark. He nodded once. Me neither. I swallowed the reflex to argue, because if anyone had taught me what darkness could buy, it was the man across from me. Instead, I set a contraband coffee on Emma's tray, nudged the straw toward her, and tried to memorize the clean quiet of a room that owed us nothing and gave us everything anyway. On the way out, the administrator intercepted me, hand extended, eyes wet. I've never seen approvals move like that. The donors asked for a blind endowment, she said, all warm to gratitude. No gala. No press. Just care. Behind me, Adrian said nothing. For once, power had arrived without a press release. It felt indecent. It felt holy. Back at the curb, he opened the car door like ritual. This, he said, not looking at me, is the only part of the story I want to keep. Then keep it, I answered. And stop pretending it redeems the rest. He huffed a laugh that didn't make it to his eyes. Fair. Fairness isn't the goal, I said, surprising us both. Truth is. The driver pulled into traffic like a comma in a sentence we hadn't finished writing. Adrian watched the glass. I watched him. The morning watched us both. Maya arrived with wind in her hair and a coat that had learned to double as armor. We took adjoining chairs facing the lawn where children divided pigeons into teams. She set her recorder down, didn't press record. New rules, I said. My pace, my red lines. Say them, she replied. 1. No story that risks Emma's coverage runs. If the SEC needs to hear something before the public does, you will swallow your Pulitzer impulse and wait. Done, Maya said, not offended. 2. We don't burn Adrian to scorch Victor. We carve. Carefully. Maya's mouth quirked. Precision, not arson. Agreed. 3. If I say stop, you stop. Understood. She passed me a manila folder as if it were a cup of something too hot. I brought my own rules. I took it. Inside, dated emails to and from Victor cross-referencing Cordelia, a senator's staffer, a subcontractor named Heron Maritime, and the phrase, optics allocation. No smoking gun yet. But the smell of smoke. Where did you get these? I asked. Breadcrumbs, she said. A frightened bookkeeper. A laptop left open. A divorce attorney who file named like a poet. Her eyes met mine. I can prove intent. I need your ledger to prove execution. You'll get copies, I said. But the originals stay with me. Maya nodded to the fountain where a boy tried to convince water to obey his stick. Why him? She asked. You could have taken the money and run. Running is expensive, I said. And Emma can't sprint. That's not what I meant. I stared into the water. He told me the truth before it helped him. That's rare in this city. Dangerous too, she said softly. Truth looks like weakness on TV. She stood, slipping the recorder back into her pocket without ever turning it on. When you're ready for the next cut, call me. She hesitated. Be careful. Someone else is fishing on this lawn. When she left, I saw him, gray coat, Sunday paper ordinary, the man from before. Watching without leering. As if cataloging exits. As if measuring wind. I texted Lydia a single photo. Same tale as last week. She typed back on him. Low profile. If he's Victor's, we'll know by dinner. By dinner we didn't. Which meant the city had introduced another player, and players who hide well usually play to kill, not to win. The Greystone photos landed like confetti sharpened to cut. Mysterious woman at Cross's side. Fashion blogs did forensic work on my dress. Business sites parsed the endowment. Gossip accounts made up the rest. The comments had teeth. I stopped reading after Gold Digger and Saint replied to each other under the same thread like theology. Adrian didn't ask me to come to the office. He sent a car anyway. I let it pass and walked, needing concrete under shoes that hadn't figured out how to be expensive yet. When I arrived, Lydia was in the conference room with 3 associates, a red string of words connecting a whiteboard full of nouns to a future we wanted to survive. "Welcome to Triage," she said. "We're managing 3 fronts: SEC Curiosity, Investor Nerves, and Victor's Public Absolution Tour." "Add a 4th, I said, tossing Maya's emails onto the table. "Intent. Victor's." Lydia scanned, whistled low. "Delicious. Admissible with the right affidavit." "Who's the right affiant?" I asked. She smiled at me like a test I would pass if I kept breathing. "You, eventually. Maya first. And someone inside Victor's wing we haven't met yet." "The shadow in the coat," I said. "Possibly." She flipped another page. "Adrian's address tonight is doubling down on clean freight. We'll tuck a line in about voluntary cooperation with regulators." "Translation," I said. "We're not cornered," she replied. "We're inviting the room to watch us clean the corners." Adrian appeared in the glass like a rumor arriving on time. He looked humanly tired. The kind of fatigue that budget coffee can't fix. He tapped the whiteboard at Heron Maritime. "We chased the supplier through 3 jurisdictions," he said. "It's a sieve. It routed money to a subcontractor who subcontracted morality." "Jakarta," I said. His eyes met mine. "And New Jersey. And Marseille. Corruption isn't patriotic." Lydia set her pen down. "You can't own all of this." "I don't," he said. "I own the rooms where I chose not to know enough." Silence chose the head chair. I felt the crack open another millimeter. The armor was holding, but it complained. He pivoted. "Olivia will join me tonight." "I will not be your redemption arc," I said. He didn't flinch. "You'll be my equal." Lydia made a note like a referee keeping score in a game where she already knew the winner if everyone kept their heads. That night, the keynote went better than good. He was unflinchingly precise, almost humble, ruthless about numbers and equally ruthless about accountability. It was a new dialect. Investors didn't clap so much as exhale. A director whose default setting was predation asked a question that sounded like concession in a tux. We were almost clear when a woman rose near the back and didn't wait for a microphone. "What about the fire?" she called. "What about Margaret Cross?" The room froze. The lights dimmed as if shocked. Adrian's hand, resting on the lectern, closed once, a fist around a muse he didn't invite. He could have detoured. He could have called it off topic. He didn't. "My mother died in a fire 19 years ago," he said, the mic aching to keep up. "A retrofit failed. A system failed. And I failed to demand that the contractors prove what their invoices promised." A collective inhale. An old wound unveiling itself in a glass room. "I've spent 19 years trying to repay a debt I can't price," he continued. "If you're investing tonight because you think I am untouchable, don't. Invest because you think I finally understand touch." It wasn't perfect. It was honest. The applause was hesitant, then real. When he stepped off the stage, I caught his sleeve without thinking, the way you steady a man who has been holding his breath for an hour. He looked at me like oxygen warmed my face. "You told me not to let a plaque redeem me." "I did." He swallowed. "Does telling it out loud help?" "Only if you keep living like it mattered," I said, because I refused to be kind where it would hurt him later. In the car he sat very still. "Eva fed that question," he said. "Why?" "To test the seam," he said. "See where I split." "You didn't," I said. "Yet," he replied. "Some truths demand a small room." We chose his kitchen because it had knives within reach and a view that made lying look silly. He set a box on the counter. Old Manila, edges softened by years. The coroner's report. The contractor's invoices. Photos from the site I should have looked at when they were fresh instead of when they felt like history. I touched nothing. He touched everything. "The retrofit specs were fine," he said. "The install wasn't. The subcontractor used a cheaper sealant. It degraded at temperature. An electrical short became a fuse." "And Cordelia?" I asked. "Cordelia paid the subcontractor to quietly rectify the documentation," he said. "After the funeral. After the payout. Your father built it." "He called it ballast," Adrian said. "Something a ship needs to keep from capsizing." He almost smiled. "Except sometimes ballast is a body tied to the keel." "Why tell me this now?" He looked up, the fatigue gone, replaced by something resigned and fierce. "Because I'm tired of writing eulogies for parts of myself I pretend I don't need." "Because you asked." "Because I owe you a truth that doesn't benefit me first." I lifted the top report. The word accidental stared back without shame. I turned to the photo, grainy and cruel. A doorway frame charred. A hallway melted. A watch face frozen at 2:14. Did you ever, the question broke, reforming? Do you blame yourself every minute? Not every minute, he said. Only the ones that count. Then make different minutes, I said. Start with this one. A silence settled, not heavy. Present. He moved around the island until we were 2 points on the same side of something that had once been a wall. You told me leverage is what you're willing to lose, I said. What are you willing to lose now? He didn't answer with nouns. He answered by lifting my hand and pressing it to the left side of his chest like a truth he was finally willing to let be measured. I don't want to lose this, he said. So I'm going to stop pretending I can keep everything else. The city exhaled against the glass, a vast reminder that none of us matter and all of us do. I slid the report back into the box, closed the lid gently, as if quiet could retroactively be kind. Tomorrow, I said, we give Maya the Heron invoices. The ones that prove method and motive. He nodded. And the day after? We send your father a letter, I said. Public, polite, lethal. His mouth curved, real this time. You're frightening. I learned from the best, I said. And I'm very tired. He walked me to the door. He didn't ask to stay, he didn't ask me to. At the threshold, he reached as if to tuck hair behind my ear, stopped, and let the moment rest unspent. Good night, Olivia, he said. Good night, Adrian. In bed, I drafted the letter I'd promised. To the board of Cross Global, it began. You cannot fix a foundation with paint. I deleted it. I started again. Words are a scalpel when used properly. I sharpened mine. At 2:14 a.m. I woke, heart pounding. The watch in the photo. The time. The way grief keeps appointments the body tries to forget. I texted Adrian without thinking. I'm still here. 3 dots. Me too. I put my phone face down and listened to the city be alive. In the morning there would be emails and invoices and men in coats who prefer to watch. In the morning there would be Maya and Lydia and a plan that required steadier hands than I currently had. For now there was this. A corridor with light, a box with a fire that finally had a name, and the absolute knowledge that if we were going to survive what we had started, we would have to let it change us first. He finally stepped out of the background on a Thursday that smelled like rain. I'd left Mercy East with Emma's laughter tucked in my pocket and turned on to second when a voice matched my stride. Miss Hale, the gray coat said. Not threatening. Not friendly. Professional, like he was introducing a new feature to an old app. Mid-40s. Unassuming shoes. Hands empty. Eyes that memorized routes. Wrong girl, I said, pivoting toward store glass to check his reflection. He didn't adjust his pace. He adjusted the space, keeping 2 polite feet like we were colleagues late to the same meeting. I don't work for Victor Cross, he said. And I don't work for your boyfriend. He's not my. Of course he isn't, he said dryly. I work for the simple idea that secrets don't age well. We hit the corner. A bus exhaled. The city changed channels. He handed me a card without a name, only a number and a one-word header. Heron. You're the one who left notes, I said. I'm the one who prefers stairwells to headlines. He glanced at my tote. Copy, not original? Always, I lied, and he smiled like he appreciated the instinct. You have enemies who like theater, he went on. They'll manufacture smoke and hope you inhale. When the lights blink, don't run toward the door everyone chooses. You sound like a man who's pulled a fire alarm before. I sound like a man who hates funerals, he said, and the line dropped from clever to true. What do you want? I asked. To live in a city where the people with the biggest scissors don't get to cut every ribbon, he said. Tonight 8 p.m. Bowery Freight Bay 6. Bring the burner. Leave the hero. The hero? Cross, he clarified. He gets in the way with his jawline. I took the card because the rain decided for me. If this is a trap. It is, he said. The question is who set it and who springs it. He tipped 2 fingers off his temple, already fading into background. Umbrellas are for people who expect weather. I texted Lydia the moment he disappeared. Gray coat. Heron contact. Bowery Freight 8 p.m. Her reply arrived before my pulse slowed. Do not go alone. I'll meet you 2 blocks out. Bring nothing you can't lose. I considered telling Adrian. I didn't. Not because I wanted to keep him out, but because some doors open only when the room believes you're alone. At 7:54 p.m., Bowery Freight looked like a tired lung, corrugated roofs exhaling steam, a forklift beeping bored obscenities. I waited by a stack of pallets, Lydia ghosted out of a shadow, trench-belted like a legal argument. "Keep your phone off until I say," she said softly. "If he's Heron, he'll hate radios." At 8:03 the bay door creaked. Gray Coat waved us in, palm open. The bay smelled like diesel and stories. "Miss Hale." "Miss Cho." He nodded at the courtesy. "I'm Harlan Reed." "Heron?" I asked. "Used to be," he said. "When they still believed invoices could outpace inspectors." He popped open a metal case. Inside, an external drive, a stack of printed ledger pages and 3 photos. 2 were of men in safety vests signing for shipments at 2 a.m. The third was of Victor Cross stepping out of a black sedan by a dock light, collar turned up, hands empty like a priest. "I took the photos," Harlan said. "I pulled the logs. Then I quit when I realized I'd rather collect blisters than hush money." Lydia skimmed a page, her brows lifting 1 precise millimeter. "This puts Victor inside the chain, not just on top of it." "It puts him under it," Harlan corrected. "He didn't sign the checks, but he signed the nights." "Why bring this to me?" I asked. "Because you'll aim it before you shoot it," he said. "And because your sister's corridor looks like the place where this city still remembers what the point of money was supposed to be." I breathed out. "I can't protect you." "I don't need protection," he said. "I need the wheel to wobble in public." He slid the drive across the metal, a soft scrape that felt like the start of a landslide. "One more thing. You have a leak." "We know," Lydia said. "You think it's a journalist or an ex," Harlan said. "It isn't." We waited. "It's family," he finished. "Just not the branch you're looking at." A forklift beeped again, impatient punctuation. Harlan tipped his head toward the door. "Go." Before the cameras I didn't decide to clock overtime. On the street, Lydia's composure had a hairline fracture. "Family," she repeated. "Fine. Then we stop being polite." Maya didn't publish everything. She published just enough to make decent people angry and indecent people clumsy. The Ledger piece went live at 9:12 a.m., a shadow fund fed cross-global supply chain, and taxpayers footed the risk. The body was careful. No wild accusations, only invoices, shipment logs, and the photos of Victor at the dock. Harlan's name didn't appear. Neither did mine. Within 20 minutes, a senator called for a preliminary inquiry. Within an hour, Cross Global's comms team issued a statement so bland it squeaked. By noon, the stock lost 3 points and found its dignity. Adrian didn't rage. He read twice, then slid the laptop closed without looking at me. "This hits Victor's flank," he said. "He'll respond by cutting mine." "Let him try," I said, braver with sunlight behind me. "He'll make it about you," Adrian added, still soft. "He'll drag Emma in by the elbow." "He already did," I said. "We just called it journalism." Lydia arrived with a binder labeled "If he burns, we roast." "We're feeding Marquez," she said. "Not everything. Harlan's drive goes into evidence sealed and timed." Adrian's jaw worked. "And Cross Global?" "Your role shifts," Lydia said. "From sun to mirror. You welcome the inquiry. You appoint a third-party auditor before they can assign you one. You take the board's teeth and tell them to smile anyway." He leaned back, closing his eyes for 1 sharp second. "This is the part where I stop pretending I can save the old thing. This is the part where you decide if you want to," I said. He opened his eyes. "I don't." "Good," Lydia said, pleased. "Then we write the press release like a man who discovered oxygen and prefers it to smoke." He did. It read like a measured confession and a dare. Cross Global has initiated a voluntary internal audit of legacy vendors and invites regulators to observe the process. The words legacy vendors did more work than most treaties. By late afternoon, my burner buzzed. "Maya, you're playing an elegant game. But Victor just booked a primetime interview. Expect blood." I stepped onto the balcony to tell Adrian, but he was already out there, phone to ear, posture set to absorb an impact. He ended the call, looked at me and said, "My father wants dinner." "Then we don't eat," I answered. He almost smiled. "We always eat. We just picked the table." They called it a systems error. When Emma's nurse tried to schedule her 4 p.m. Pacific time, the screen flashed authorization revoked. The administrator went pale. The billing office picked up on the first ring and insisted a form was missing that had never been needed before. I was there in 10 minutes, brown paper bag of strawberries forgotten on the check-in counter. "This is retaliation," I told the administrator. "Fix it." "We're trying," she said, near tears. "The insurer says they received a call from a cross-global number instructing them to pause pending an audit of." I didn't hear the rest. I was already calling Lydia, then Adrian, than anyone who could set a system on fire without burning the patients. Adrian arrived in under 20 minutes, fury cold enough to lower the room's temperature. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply asked for a conference call with 3 executives whose calendars didn't include the words no or later. "This is illegal," he said calmly into the speaker. "It's also immoral and sloppy. Restore coverage in the next 60 minutes or I walk downstairs, hold a press conference in your lobby, and explain how a clerical error almost made you complicit in negligent homicide." The administrator covered her mouth. The line crackled. A vice president cleared his throat and tried on contrition. "This is a misunderstanding. Tim," Adrian said, voice like a wire pulled tight enough to sing, "you don't have enough vowels in your last name to handle me today. Fix it." 51 minutes later, Emma's file glowed green again. The therapist reappeared with apologies and stickers. Emma looked from the door to Adrian to me and shook her head. "You two are going to give me a second stroke." "We'll schedule it," I said, and the laugh cracked all 3 of us open. On the curb afterward, the air felt too clean. Adrian braced a hand on the car roof, eyes shut. "He's done pretending he's a gentleman," he said. "If Victor will touch a hospital record, he'll touch anything. Then we make it not work," I said. "Again and again. Until it's easier for him to surrender." He opened his eyes. "You think he surrenders?" "No," I said. "I think he slips." The burner buzzed. "Maya, Victor pushed a leak, contract images of your NDA. He's reframing you as a blackmailer. TV at 8. I met Adrian's gaze. He had read the text in my face before my mouth caught up. "It's time," he said. "For what?" "For you to stop being our liability," he answered. "And become our witness." Adrian's father chose a restaurant with linen so white it hurt. The maitre d' lifted 2 menus like offerings. Mr. Cross waved them away and ordered from memory, the way emperors used to carry maps in their heads. "Son," he said when the performance arrived, "you are hemorrhaging goodwill." "I'm hemorrhaging rot," Adrian replied. Mr. Cross's smile tightened. "Words like that are for people who can't afford nouns." "You can," Adrian said. "You bought a vocabulary for grief and then rented it to lobbyists." The server set wine down. Mr. Cross didn't touch it. "The ledger piece won't hold. Victor will swat it. But your friend is a different problem." His gaze slid to me. "Miss Hale." "Mr. Cross," I said. "Thank you for dinner I can't taste." "You're welcome for the hospital wing," he said mildly. "And for the end of this experiment." "Experiment?" Adrian asked. "Playing at penance," his father said. "It doesn't suit you." "It suits the living," Adrian said. "Which is what we're trying to stay." Mr. Cross leaned in, voice softening to persuasion. "Step back. Let Victor take the heat. Appear contrite. Marry a woman the donors like." I didn't blink. Adrian didn't either. "I already did the second," he said. "And I'm working on the first by not lying anymore." "You think telling the truth is an asset," his father said, pitying. "It's a hobby for the poor." "Then consider me newly poor," Adrian replied, and the table tilted in a way linens couldn't fix. Mr. Cross's eyes cooled. "If you bring this house down, you'll find there is no door labeled outside. There is only rubble." Adrian reached for my hand, fingers threading with mine like a vote. "Then we'll build something else." A muscle ticked in Mr. Cross's jaw. He placed his napkin on the table with surgical grace, stood, and left without a good night. We sat in the hum heat abandoned. The restaurant resumed pretending food could hold the world together. "You chose," I said quietly. He squeezed once. "Not the throne. What does it feel like?" He considered. "Like starting over. Like loss measured in relief." We walked out into a city that had decided to reign. It felt like punctuation and absolution and whether you don't ask permission from. At the curb, Lydia texted a single sentence. "Marquez is ready for you. Tomorrow morning. Bring copies and courage." Adrian read it over my shoulder. "I'll come." "You can't," I said. "Witnesses are cleaner alone." He nodded, jaw tight, eyes not. "Then I'll wait outside." At home, I pulled the freezer open, moved the peas, and held the envelope that had rearranged the architecture of my days. I swapped originals for copies with a ritualist's care. I packed Harlan's Drive inside a book with a cracked spine because stories like company. When I finally slept, I dreamed of a chair at a long table and no one sitting at the head. Of Emma walking a hallway washed with sun. Of a gray coat watching a door that would not open until the building decided it was ready to change. In the morning, I would hand the city a mirror. In the morning, I would say my name into a recorder and own the way it sounded next to his. And maybe, if truth really could be currency, I would buy us both a life that didn't require silence to breathe. Detective Isla Marquez's office had the soft chaos of a person who believes in paper even after computers. Plants and chipped mugs. A postcard of Coney Island tacked above a neatly coiled charging cable. She rose when I entered, not to intimidate, just to meet me at human height. "Olivia Hale," she said, offering water and something like mercy. "Thank you for coming. This is recorded. You can stop at any time." Outside, through frosted glass, Adrian's silhouette sat in a waiting chair, shoulders squared, hands quiet, patience weaponized. Lydia stood near him, jaw set, a perimeter in heels. Marquez set a small recorder between us. "State your name and the reason you're here." "My name is Olivia Grace Hale," I said, hearing the treble of my own nerves. "I'm here to submit materials related to a shell fund called Cordelia Holdings and to make a sworn statement about events surrounding its use." "Good," she said softly. "Start with the first time you saw the word Cordelia." I told her about the file room, the envelope, the damp glue seal like an afterthought that changed my life. I told her what I took, what I froze, what I signed. I described payments that moved like a magician's hand, faster than conscience. When I finished, she paged through the copies. Her gaze lingered on Heron Maritime, on Victor's docklight photograph. "You're giving me leverage," she said. "With a string attached." "What string?" "Emma," she replied without looking up. "You're asking me to keep her out of the fire." "I'm asking you to aim true," I said. "I do," she said. "And I tell you when it will still burn." She slid a waiver over. "Allow me to coordinate with the SEC. We'll cross-file so no one shreds what the other needs." "Done." "Last thing," she added, voice turning practical. "Someone close to you is leaking. Your emails show a pattern: forwarded drafts, metadata that hopped through a private server before returning to Cross Globals. That's not Victor. That's family." "My family is small," I said. "My mother's gone. My father. His is not," she said gently. "Families can be the people who sign your paychecks." I exhaled. "The board?" "Maybe," she said. "Or the kind of aunt that calls herself a chief financial officer." "Amelia?" I asked, startled. "She's been helping us." "She's been helping herself," Marquez said, not unkind. "The two overlap until they don't." I signed the chain of custody. She clicked the recorder off and leaned back. "I can't promise clean, Ms. Hale. I can promise fair. Go home. Let me do my job." In the hallway, Adrian stood when he saw me, the chair exhaling relief. His hand hovered near my back. I let it land. "Okay?" he asked. "I told the truth," I said. "Now it gets to work." Victor chose prime time for his repentance tour. A studio dressed like a courtroom, an anchor with the smile of a cat who's found the cream and the witness. He used gravitas. When asked about shadow funds, he sighed, a patriot exhausted by smear. Then the screen filled with images. Me accepting the first check, my signature on the NDA, a clipped audio that made me sound like I'd named my price. The Chiron did the rest. Billionaire's mistress of silence? Lydia threw a pen at the TV. It bounced off smugly. Adrian didn't flinch. He watched like a surgeon studying a tumor he'd already scheduled for removal. "Splice on the audio," Lydia said. "We can prove it." "He doesn't need proof," Adrian replied, voice level. "He needs the 2-second impression." My phone lit with numbers I didn't know and names I didn't want. Emma texted a single heart. The steadiness of it made my knees weak. Maya called on the burner. "I can counter-program with a piece that foregrounds Victor's doc visits and downplays you." Her tone shifted. "But there's something else. A parallel leak." "What?" "An email from Amelia's private account to a PR fixer. If the girl flips, we throw the NDA. She doesn't, we throw the sister. Timestamped the day before your clinic's glitch." Blood roared. So it was Amelia. Or someone using her login, Maya said. Either way, Victor's choreography has an inside rhythm. Adrian's face didn't change, but something inside him did, an old hinge groaning. "I trusted her," he said quietly. "No," Lydia corrected Icecom. "You hired her." "Same difference at this altitude," he said. Lydia's eyes softened. "Not anymore." We crafted our counter in minutes. A statement from Adrian welcoming the inquiry, naming the audio as doctored, redirecting the lens to the ledger. We sent it to the anchors who still valued receipts over spectacle. We attached the doc photo. We CC'd Marquez and the SEC so the inboxes hummed in harmony. Then the power flickered. Before one heartbeat, the penthouse went dark, the city reduced to its heartbeat. My phone buzzed. Unknown, I warned you about the lights. When the chandeliers steadied, Adrian's security chief was already in the doorway. Elevators spiked. Our backup caught it. Might be a test. Victor was done simply speaking. He'd started pressing buttons. We confronted Amelia at noon, not with theatrics but with a neatly bound packet of her own emails printed in 12-point font. She arrived to the conference room in a dress that could pass a lie detector test and sat with her hands folded like an apology turned down twice. I assume this is where I'm supposed to panic, she said. This is where you tell me why my sister's coverage tripped after your note to a fixer, I said, fighting for level. I didn't write that, she said without blinking. My account was used. By Victor's people, she said. Or mine. It depends how long you think I've been doing math. Long enough, Lydia said, bone dry. Adrian's voice was softer. Why? Amelia studied him like the old teacher who hates that the brightest student has learned a better theorem. Because Victor built the house we all live in. When he decides the roof is gone, none of us get dry. You could have walked, he said. I couldn't afford to be good, she replied, and the honesty stung more than the defense. I can now. I brought you a ledger because I want a deal that doesn't end with me in orange. And the email? I pressed. She spread her hands. Use it to hang him. Just don't pin me to the wall for nails I didn't buy. Marquez texted Lydia during the meeting. Treat Amelia as cooperating, for now. Her testimony can lock Victor to Heron. But don't give her the keys to your house. We didn't. We let her walk out with a lawyer's promise and a detective's rope tied around her ankle, invisible and unbreakable. When the door shut, Adrian rubbed the bridge of his nose. Every room I grew up in taught me to mistake competence for trust. Competence is a great liar, I said. He looked at me, the tired warmth of someone who had slept at the foot of a hospital bed in a suit. So are contracts. Even ours. Especially ours, he said, too gentle to wound. We stood on opposite sides of the conference table long enough for the city to change hour. Then I rounded the wood and let my fingers skitter across his knuckles like forgiveness asking permission. He didn't pull away. We don't have to be the rooms we grew up in, I said. Show me, he answered. We could have kept strategizing. We could have rewritten statements until Dawn filed a complaint. Instead we went home and cooked. He chopped onions with the intensity of a man who needed something to cry for him. I stirred sauce like prayer. Jazz scratched softly from a speaker barely loud enough to count as sound. New York out the windows made its usual arguments with itself. He slid me a taste on the back of a wooden spoon. Too much heat. Enough, I said, and didn't mean the pepper. When the pasta was gone and the plates rinsed, we stood 2 feet apart and let all the reasons not to close the distance parade by. Contract. Power. Optics. Fear. Then I stepped into the space where excuses go to die. Olivia, he said like a caution and a benediction. Senate rooms smell like old decisions. The seal on the wood paneling, the microphones that flatten voices into equal volume, the cameras pretending to be invisible. I sat behind Adrian, Lydia on his right, Marquez 2 rows back with a folder labeled Heron/Cordelia in permanent marker. Senator Marks spoke like a metronome. Mr. Cross, did Cross Global benefit from payments routed through Cordelia Holdings to foreign subcontractors engaged in circumventing environmental caps? Yes, Adrian said. No euphemism. No pivot. A collective inhale. And did you know? I knew too little and suspected too much. He glanced toward the dais, then at me. I chose not to know more because it was profitable to remain ignorant. That was wrong. The room shifted, reporters recalibrating headlines, donors adjusting loyalties. Truth sounded expensive in a microphone. Then Victor took his turn. Calm, powdered, contrite. I'm as shocked as anyone to learn of these irregularities. His lawyer slid a statement across. My nephew, however, has been under undue influence from Ms. Hale. A tilt of chin toward me. A woman with financial motive. Marks cut him off. We have photographs of you at Heron Docks and emails authorizing optics allocation. Spare us the theater. Victor's smile didn't crack. His eyes did. Ms. Hale sold her silence. No, I said before I could stop myself. The mic didn't catch it, the room did. Head swiveled. Marks turned. Ms. Hale, would you care to be sworn in? Lydia squeezed my knee once. It's time. I rose on bones that suddenly remembered every floor I'd mopped since 18. The oath tasted like copper. When Marks asked if I took money, I said, yes. When he asked why, I said, because breath is expensive. Whose breath? He asked. My sister's. Silence. Then the pivot. Did you blackmail Mr. Cross? Marks asked. No, I said. He offered money for silence. I took it to keep my sister alive. And when I learned what the money covered, I chose truth instead. Adrian watched me with something like relief braided with ache. Victor watched me with something like fascination. A man who'd never been told no by the weather. Marks thanked me and banged the gavel as if punctuation could carry mercy. Outside the press swarmed. Microphones bloomed. From somewhere in the swarm a tremulous voice rose. Miss Hale? Emma, wrapped in a hoodie, escorted by a nurse who had the arms of a saint and the eyes of a bouncer. I panicked, then saw the steadiness in her step and remembered Marquez's text. She insisted. Cleared with her doctor. 5 minutes only. Ma'am, Emma said to the cluster of cameras, I'm the reason my sister took that money. If you want to judge someone, judge me for needing help. But I'm alive and I'd like to stay that way. She swallowed. Mr. Cross paid the bills. Then he told the truth when it could hurt him. That's all I know. Reporters lowered mics like they'd just been asked to hold a sleeping child. For once, nobody shouted. Back inside, Adrian sat alone at the worn wooden table and stared at his hands until his breathing found him. When he looked up, the man who bought my silence had the face of someone who finally understood a different currency. Marquez walked the ledger into the U.S. Attorney's office like a midwife with a miracle. Steady, unsentimental, fierce. Harlan Reed's drive joined it. Amelia, cooperating, clipped, immaculate, testified that Victor authorized the shadow server and approved the optics payouts. She never said sorry. She did say sign here and I'll accept immunity limited to procurement, which is corporate for I plan to sleep later. The indictment landed on a rainy Thursday. Wire fraud. Conspiracy. Obstruction. A footnote named Heron Maritime as a co-conspirator. The part of the city that likes to pretend it's above gossip pretended harder. The rest screamed with schadenfreude. Victor went on television anyway. Political witch hunt, he purred. A vendetta by a woman who seduced my nephew into dismantling a great American company. A late-night host mocked him with a broom and a pointy hat. The stock stabilized, then crept up. Investors love certainty more than they love saints. Adrian refused interviews. He gave one statement. I welcome the charges. I will cooperate fully. Effective immediately, I resign from my executive role. He didn't say for optics. He didn't say for love. He didn't have to. The city did the math. That night in our kitchen he slid a key fob across the counter. Drivers fired. Security rescreened. Every wire in this place will hate the next hacker. I traced a circle around the fob like it was a rune. And you? I'm going to learn how to be useful without a board meeting, he said. Starting with dish duty. I laughed and surprised myself by crying into my own smile. He wiped my cheeks with his thumbs the way careful men do when they are trying not to make promises their hands can't keep. The board assembled one last time to choose its savior. The chandeliers looked tired of watching men pretend they weren't gods. Amelia presided with the efficiency of a woman who'd already arshed 3 futures on her lunch break. Interim CEO, she said crisply. We need a name the street won't turn into a piñata. A director cleared his throat. Alexander. No, Adrian said, rising. No theatrics. I'm not it. Murmurs. Cameras, there were always cameras, lurked behind smoked glass. He continued, voice steady. This company can be good, he said. It can also be profitable. But it won't do either if I sit in that chair right now. I built systems that rewarded speed over conscience. Victor exploited them. I can't fix that as your boss. I can help fix it as your loudest shareholder. Amelia's eyes, flinty as numbers, held the smallest flicker of respect. Then we appoint Dana Lark, she said, operations chief, unglamorous, relentless, clean. Anyone opposed? No one dared oppose a person who read the safety manuals for fun. The motion carried. Something unclenched in the room itself. In the hallway, reporters pounced. Mr. Cross, are you abandoning ship? Miss Hale, are you pregnant? I choked on air. Is this a police strategy? Adrian fielded the first 2 with patience and a glare. Lydia fielded the third with a phrase that made one microphone wilt. We reached the elevator just as Eva stepped out, silver again, uninvited. Leaving so soon? She asked Adrian, eyes tired, mouth cruel for sport. Arriving so late? He replied, not mean, done. You deserve a better villain than Victor. You deserve a better religion than redemption, she said. She turned to me. Hold him accountable when the cameras move on. Or you'll end up curating his mythology. I collect receipts, I said. not myths. Her smile almost liked me. Then you might make it. She vanished into the oak-scented politics of rich buildings. In the quiet elevator, Adrian exhaled like loss and relief had finally agreed on a number. Goodbye to the throne, he said. Hello to what? I asked. Whatever we build with our hands, he said, looking at them like tools, not weapons. We didn't flee Manhattan. We made it smaller. Elise in a pre-war walk-up with floors that groaned like storytellers. A restaurant license with our names misspelled the first time because the clerk was crying about her dog. 12 tables. A menu that changed when the fisherman had a better day. We called it Lark and Ash, for the woman who agreed to save what we couldn't and for what rises, char and song. Opening night, Emma claimed a corner booth like a throne the city couldn't repossess. Lydia arrived with a bouquet that belonged in a wedding and a bottle of wine that belonged in a museum. Marquez sent a plant with a tag, for rooms where truth can breathe. Harlan Reed mailed a postcard that read, do not name the chowder heron. We did not. Adrian greeted guests with a smile that started slow and warmed. He poured water without spilling it on phones. He carried 3 plates like he'd been born with an extra wrist. I watched him learn humility with the same focus he once reserved for quarterly earnings. Between seatings, he caught my waist, tugged me into the hallway by the walk-in, kissed me like the first night hadn't ended, like the contract had always actually been this. You're glowing, he whispered. I'm sweating, I said into his collar. The ice machine died. He laughed from someplace that didn't exist when we met. I can fix an ice machine. You can't, I said. But we can call a guy. Progress, he murmured. Near closing, a familiar profile hovered by the door. Mr. Cross. No entourage. No camera. A coat cut for an older man who still expected the weather to obey. I heard you left the table, he said to Adrian. I did, Adrian said. There are better meals. My menu shook in my hand, but Mr. Cross didn't look at me like a weapon. He looked at the restaurant like a riddle. You won't be rich this way. I'm not poor, Adrian said, glancing at me, at Emma, at the staff laughing near the sink. Not anymore. Something imperceptible in Mr. Cross's posture softened. Or I imagined it because I needed to. He set a thick envelope on the host's stand. An accounting of family trusts diverted through Victor's hands. I should have brought it sooner. Lydia, materializing like good counsel from nowhere, slid the envelope into her tote without breaking eye contact. I'll take that. Mr. Cross nodded once at her, once at me, twice at his son. The city never forgets, he said, turning to go. But sometimes it forgives if you feed it well. Pause. Congratulations, Ms. Hale. Thank you, I said, too startled to add anything sharp. After he left, Adrian leaned against the stand, head tipped back, eyes damp in a way that didn't ask for privacy and did. I threaded our fingers. He squeezed once, a Morse code for I'm still learning how to say this out loud. We closed at midnight. I burned the last batch of bread. He washed the last 3 pans like baptism. Emma fell asleep in the corner booth, hoodie over her face. I tucked a napkin under her cheek like a mother and a sister and a girl who could finally afford softness. Outside, the city hummed, not hungry, just alive. Spring turned to a kinder summer. Victor pled not guilty and discovered that juries dislike being asked to ignore photographs. Amelia testified cleanly, negotiated her penance into a lifetime ban from procurement boards, volunteered on Sundays tutoring algebra to kids who might one day audit her former employers. Harlan moved upstate and sent us bad selfies with better sunsets. Maya won an award she didn't attend. She sent us a note that said the best stories end with someone eating, not someone falling in a plant we could not keep alive. Emma learned to run again. Not fast. Fast enough to beat me to the corner when the light turned yellow. She took a part-time job at the restaurant, rediscovered her old laugh in the dish pit, flirted with the pastry chef, actually blushed. One evening, after the last table paid and the last chair flipped, Adrian stood in the doorway in rolled sleeves, water beating on his wrists, the city behind him like the backdrop to a play that had finally found its ending. I used to think quiet meant control, he said, stacking plates. Now it just sounds like room. For what? I asked, wiping chalk from the special board. For the truth to talk without shouting. I set down the chalk. And for love. He smiled, slow and certain. That too. We walked home under a sky that didn't owe us a thing and gave us a moon anyway. He laced our fingers like habit and hope. Somewhere behind us, the ice machine clunked back to life. Somewhere ahead, Emma texted a photo of a cat she intended to adopt without permission. Somewhere, a senator used the word ethics without choking. He bought my silence once. We traded it for a life that didn't need it. And when he kissed me on a corner that remembered everything we had been, I let the city witness without asking it to approve.